Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So as we spoke about in the previous video, we looked at the switch statements, which are multi-selection statements, and they can only accept certain types. So they can't accept any long types. So in this video, we said we were going to have a look at switch statements using strings. So there's an example for an auto policy that we can use. I've created a new project and within that project I've created two classes. One is the auto policy class and the other one is the auto policy test class, and this is where our main entry for the program is. So this is our automated auto-generated method stub, which is here, which is the public static void main, and then we have the constructor stub, which is also automatically generated when you tick the button or tick the box in Eclipse. So for the auto policy within the constructor, we leave that there at the moment. The variables nearly always go at the top of a class unless there's a certain reason for it. So we're going to create the account number here as an integer, and then we're going to create two separate strings. So in this case it's make and model. As you can see, that the way that you write a lot of this is a lot of these use camel casing, lowercase camel casing. So the first the variables should always start with a lowercase and then a capital case for each word. That's important for it to read. So this is and then when it's only one singular word, obviously it begins with a lowercase. Keywords, capital case per string. So that comes from the string class that represents the character strings. When you click on int here, nothing comes up. However, if I was to use int here, you can see here, if I scroll over string, you can see it's java.line.up, and here it says that it cannot be resolved, so it needs to be a lowercase I. So that's really important as well. Uppercase, lowercase, it's a strict part of the syntax within Java, and also to do with the convention as well. It will tell you, as we spoke about earlier, that the packages are usually start with a lowercase, classes an uppercase, and then variables are lowercase as well. So within the constructor, we want to be able to pass these three variables to wherever it is called. So I'll take away the to do here, and I will make the parameters within this account number the same. And the next one, as you can imagine, is going to be string, and it's going to be called make and model. And then obviously this is not the semicolon, it's and string again, and this will be the state, which are the same three at the top. Now, as we spoke about before, we use what's called the this keyword, and this dot and now we're going to have make a model equals and assign it to make and model. Because we're using a private keyword and private access modifier, we need to be able to access it when access each of the variables within the code. So like we spoke about before, so we have here, if I highlight account number, it will show up that this, as in this account number within this class when it's called, and when you call the constructor, it will be assigned to the class-wide variable. So as we're going along, we should always put up the correct comments as we're going along as well. And now with each of these, we're going to have a get and set method for each of these, for the account number, for the make and model, and for the state, and that takes up a lot of the code. So I'm going to pause the video now, type it out, and you can take a look on the GitHub afterwards. Once I have it typed out, then you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm going to pause it for the moment. Hello. So now we have our get and our set methods that are there. When we start a method, it's a lowercase, so it's class.method is how we access it, class being a capital letter and method being a lowercase. For each of the private variables, we always have a set and get method. So when we're setting it, it's not going to return anything, it's just setting the variable within this class from the parameter that's called, and that's just assigning it to the correct class-wide variable. And then the get is returning something, so it will return it within the same type. So in this instance, we have int for the account number, and then string for the set, make and model, and also or should I say string for the get, make and model, and that returns the make and model, which is also a string. So you can see it's very logical. These are the three private instance variables. We have an integer, account number, string, make and model, string, state. Within the constructor, so anytime you're calling auto policy class in another class, which we will do because we have the auto policy test which we need to write, that you are assigning, when it's called, you're assigning it to the class-wide variable, which is the instance variable within the class, account number, make and model, and state. As a result, then we set and get each of these for the private instance variables, and that's literally just setting and getting it. And then what we're going to do now is create a Boolean return, and that will just be obviously a true or false. So we have Boolean no fault state. So within that, we just have a Boolean here. It says no fault state, but this is just declaring this as a variable. So at the moment, you can see here that it says switch strings, which is the package name, auto policy, which is the class name, is no fault state, which is the method name, and the variable within that method is called Boolean no fault state. Obviously, I can change this to a different name, but it makes sense in this particular instance to keep it as that. Now we're going to have a switch statement, which with the switch statements, they always start off with the keyword switch, and we're going to get the state. Within this, we have to open and close our curly brackets, or our parentheses as we like to say, and then we're going to say case, and with the string it's, let's say, LK for Limerick and where I'm from originally, and then we'll say for Galway it's GY, Galway, best university in Ireland. And then we also have case, and we'll say give me another with two numbers per number plate in Ireland. So you can say KY. Okay, so we'll leave it at that for the three, and then we have another to write down as our no fault state is equal to true. Okay, then we also have to put in a break like we did before. It's the same format, and then we always put in a default. So and pay attention as well to how it's written. No fault state is equal to false, and we have a break, and and then we're going to have to return whatever the value of this is. Because there's no return at the moment, it's not going to run. So when we've said that we're going to return something, usually within the method you have public and whatever type you're going to return. In this case it's a Boolean, in the previous get it's a string and a string, and then you have a return statement of what it's returning. In this case now we're going to return the no fault state, and that is where it's declared as nothing here. Now, as we know from the previous video, our default state, as in the initial here, is false for Java. So when you, if you do not declare an initial value, this will start as false. Now, because we're putting in different cases, in this instance it's LK and GY and KY, it will be set to true, and then it outlines the actual default here again. However, if you do not state a default here, it will automatically be false. It should automatically be false. So we're going to do the test now, and in the test we have to create a new object. So we have auto policy, and let's call it auto policy 1 is equal to new, which is the new keyword that we need to use, and then auto policy, and we have an integer first, so 1 2 3 4 5. We have, let's call it an Audi A1, and then in your next you have LK for Limerick. Now, and then we can create new objects as we're going along. So we can have, this is 1, let's do another one. Auto policy 2 equals new auto policy, let's say 5 6 7 8 9 as the integer, as the 2 strings that we want to put in. We're going to say Fiat 500, and then if we look at that as KY, let's say, for instance. Now we can put in another auto policy here without it. I am just using LK and KY here because I have created these as the cases in the switch statement here. So within that we have to then display whether each policy is in a no fault state. So now we have our policy in no fault state, and we pass through policy in this instance policy 1, and because I created it up here already, I have just the auto policy as the test cases. Now, this is just looking at policy. This isn't created just yet. We're going to create it in the next part. So if we take a look here, you can click on it and it says create method, and you can create it and it does it automatically, so you don't need to do anything, any typing or anything. So now we can just go system.out.print ln and let's say the auto policy, and that's going to be 1 line, and then we say system.out.printf. Format obviously is going to be the same, so we're going to say account and %d, and then we need to put in car, and then percentage S for string, maybe percentage N, and then we are obviously as well, we're going to have the no fault state, and that's going to be percentage N as well. But we also need the state, so state and percentage S. Now, so we're going to put in our arguments, which we know already are going to be the auto policy 1 dot policy with a capital 1 dot, and then you can see here get account number. So as an integer, we already said that it's going to be percentage %d, then auto policy 1 dot, and then we're going to get make and model, and finally that's going to be comma, not a, and then auto policy 1 dot, and then we are going to say get state. Now with the final part, this is where we can use the other type of operand. So if we, for instance, have policy dot is no fault state, it's going to be auto policy 1 dot is no fault state, and then question mark, or we're going to use the ternary operator, it's called, and then is, and then is not. So do we have all of our things in order? Let's see and check. We haven't used auto policy 2 at all. We can actually get rid of that if we wanted to. Maybe we should to clean up our code. Yeah, let's do that. Clean up our code a little bit. This just displays whether each policy is in a no fault state. This is a method to display policy is in a no fault. Now we save everything. If you want to pause the video at any point or go through any of these as well, we have to make sure we're in the correct, we have all of the correct placeholders in order, and then I'm sure I'll get an error if it's not. So do I have the number of percentage S's that I need within this? So I have, if I bring it down, you can see here in order. So get account number percentage D, fine. Make and model, that was a string type. You can see when you scroll over it, it's string type. So that will be the type of car. Get state, that is also string percentage S, perfect. And in this instance, we have also Boolean is in no state. So let's have a look. Now, the auto policy account 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, car, Audi A1, state, LK is no fault state. And that is your output for the switched string multi-selection with break and continue statements and the ternary operator. And I highly recommend going through the code again, having a look at creating another policy. You can create a system input perhaps with it for user input as well. And we'll come back to the next video in more detail. Okay, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Any feedback that you might have, send it into learncomputerswithali@gmail.com, and thanks for watching.